So all of a sudden, from 13 months, I had 10 years.
How did you explain that to your wife, Dad?
And then
My
later,
mother, yeah.
Later they added a few more months. She was a very patient lady, I tell you. And I would go up and spend the week. I got an apartment up there, then come home on the weekend and teach at Duke on a Monday morning, and then go back up there. It was an interesting experience trying to juggle the different things I was doing. Hopefully did it okay. And then when I finally retired, and my term had been extended still further, so that I retired on September the 30th, 1990.
Right.
The size of the court was expanded from 3 to 5. The president had not appointed anybody to fill the vacancy, so that meant there were 2 judges.
This was President Clinton at the time, yeah.
President Bush.
Oh, Bush, forgive me,
President
that's
Bush.
Exactly right, sorry.
The first Bush.
Right.
He had not filled the vacancy, and so that meant there were 2 judges and 3 vacancies. And they asked me, the chief judge who took over from me, Judge Eugene Sullivan, he asked me if I'd stay around as a senior judge. I'd become a senior judge so I could still fill in. And as recently as 2 years ago, I filled in on a murder appeal.
No.
But he asked me if I would stay around, and I said, okay, you need me, I'll stay. And I stayed until January of 1992. It took him 15 months to fill those 3 vacancies.
January of 92. That's amazing.
I swore in the 5th judge at that point.
You swore in the 5th judge?
Yeah. Then later that judge died, and I filled in for a few months while they were trying to
That's amazing.
fill the vacancy.
Golly, Dad.
So 13 months expanded to, in aggregate, well over 11 and a half
You've
years.
remained on as a senior judge of that court?
Absolutely.
Right.
I assume that they will have no great need for me, but I attend the judicial conferences, participate in other ways.
Right.
And as I mentioned, in August, I think it was 2005, I did sit on an appeal of a murder case.
Yes.
The case was actually heard in Chicago rather than the courthouse, part of a program that I initiated while I was chief judge. You know, we'd go out and hear cases at other places besides Washington.
Oftentimes even law schools.
Yeah.
Didn't you go to Wake Forest one year?
Wake Forest, Duke.
University of Richmond.
Harvard, several places.
Yeah.
And one of the other things we did, this was what I call Project Outreach. One of the other things I did was to...
we're going.
Nice we got it.
Absolutely. 7 a.m. We've got some kids here on the set. Isn't that great?
But one of the other things I did, which was sort of groundbreaking, was initiate television coverage of some of the arguments.
Right.
And
you go ahead and keep that, absolutely.
It was something that resulted from a conversation with a guy who was an attorney for one of the networks, and he mentioned they had wanted to televise a Supreme Court hearing.
Right.
have the arguments there televised. But the justices did not like the idea. It's sort of an invasion of privacy, et cetera, or whatever. And so he was very depressed. It did not look as if any federal court would be willing to do that. And I said, well, we are a federal court, Court of Appeals, a civilian court.
Right.
But we're established under a different constitutional provision. Therefore, we're not subject to direct supervision by the Supreme Court and the Judicial Conference. And we're free to go ahead with television. So we'll have a couple of televised arguments. And it was very interesting. We did some groundbreaking in that regard, and I think it was desirable in the long run.
Absolutely. It was big. I remember there were times when, I think there was a time you were pumping gas up in Virginia, and a guy had said that he had seen you on C-SPAN.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks to the, obviously, opening up the courts to the cameras.
We were on Court TV. And,
Court TV.
I asked the lawyers, well, I'm trying to think, did it affect our behavior as judges? And, you get involved in one of those arguments, it really doesn't affect you. And I asked some of the counsel, And one guy said it had affected him at first to know that he was being televised, but as soon as he got into the argument, that faded from the scene.
You had some fabulous attorneys argue in front of you. I remember a time Mom traveled up to hear F. Lee Bailey in a big case. Was it an espionage
case involving an Air Force Lieutenant Cook? And F. Lee Bailey made a great presentation. I came to know him through that and had a high regard for him.
Oh, yeah.
So we had some fascinating issues there, all sorts of things, some that would arise in other courts and some that were unique to the military justice system.
Right. You know, it is amazing, Dad. There's so many things. We don't have much time. We're running out of time here on part 3. But I look at your service as chairman of LAMP, and we want to understand, or if you'll share with viewers real quick about that. Your chairman is the service on the North Carolina Bar's Continuing Legal Education Committee, the chairman of IOLTA for many years. Maybe you could share with viewers a little bit about those, just quick synopses. Very interesting, though.
Well, and I want to tell you also a little bit about LENS.
LENS, of course, and founding the Center on Law, Ethics, and National Security.
But a quickie, the State Bar of North Carolina has for some 20-plus years had a committee, which I've chaired, on legal assistance to military personnel.
Right.
Which involves service members, their dependents. We're beginning to expand it a little bit to help veterans. And the basic idea is to try to recruit lawyers who will give free legal assistance to military personnel who need it. And we've been very successful. I think the North Carolina program has been viewed as one of the top ones, if not the top one in the nation. Then, at some time in the past, I was involved in chairing a committee to assure that lawyers would go through continuing legal education. They keep attending programs to educate themselves. I was involved at one time in North Carolina as chair of the IOLTA committee, which was interest on lawyers' trust accounts. So that money which was in a trust account could earn interest, and that interest could be paid into the North Carolina Bar to support public interest programs.
Great.
But the thing I feel particularly proud of is having established at Duke Law School a center on law, ethics, and national security. This is about 10, 12 years ago. I taught courses in national security law at Duke, Carolina, Wake Forest, and it appeared to me that there was need for a center that would coordinate some of the studies on law, the ethical implications, the legal implications. And we were able to get such a center started. The funding came largely from my mother's estate.
Yes.
But, and you're on our board. You've been on our board. And,
for many years, a decade.
We were able to obtain an executive director, a retired, well, he wasn't retired at the time. He retired to take the position, Colonel Scott Silliman.
Who's a superstar, absolutely.
Superstar.
All over the place.
Yeah, you hear him on NPR, you see him on TV.
Lots of TV stations or channels. That's exactly right. Yeah, we're running out of time. You know, there's so many things. And Scott Silliman, we love to highlight him. I'm sorry, we're getting, you know, when you think about for you, what has been the most exciting aspect of practicing the law? And then I want to ask you, what's been the best part of teaching the law? Of course, we think about adjudicating or being in a courtroom and having heard some fascinating capital punishment cases or other espionage cases or otherwise. What's been the most exciting aspect of practicing law since as far back as 1950?
Well, I think in practicing law, the opportunity to help people, point one, and also the opportunity in other instances to settle disputes and to get a peaceful resolution of something which has been filed as a complaint in court. So mediation, participating in that has been valuable. But, you know, just trying to bring things to a suitable solution where everybody is reasonably happy or maybe reasonably unhappy, you know what I mean. So that's been an important part of practice. You know, the contact with clients, being able to feel like you're helping people. Then as far as teaching, I think the inspiration that you get from these brilliant, wonderful law students.
Oh, yeah.
And then at later times, when they're alums, seeing them catching up on the news, helping them out if possible in different things. I ran into a judge the other day who had been my student, I think, in 1950-51.
No, in that first year of teaching.
Down around, I think he's from Salisbury or Statesville, North Carolina. Anyway, that can be fun. I've had several instances in which I have taught in law school the children of former students of mine. And that is very meaningful. So, and at Duke Law School, it's been great. I've also had the privilege of teaching some at Carolina and Wake Forest, wonderful schools. I even taught a couple of courses at Georgetown long ago. So you run into some wonderful people, you have some great colleagues, but I think it's the contact with the students that really keeps you going, makes it very worthwhile.
And your aspirations did, as we shared yesterday, with your mother having practiced law for 70-plus years, your father for 65-plus years, you now continuous for 57 years. You want to beat them both?
I'd like to keep going in one form or another. I'd like to have your brothers and sister-in-law join me in keeping the Everett firm going on. Duke is allowing me to continue, at least for the present, and I've got a great new seminar that I'm setting up this fall on sentencing and punishment. That's been approved. I'm working on creating a couple of foundations that may be of interest. One is in connection with trying to help federal prisoners who are re-entering the outside community, helping them to avoid getting back in jail. And then the other one has nothing to do with law. It's about finger painting.
Finger painting. Golly, Dad, I'm sorry we've run out of time. We'd love to hear more about Ruth Faison Shaw and the amazing foundation you're setting up. And part 3 is over. But thank you so much for being with us the last 3 days. Go enjoy this buffet here at East of Chicago Pizza. This has been a treat.
Well, I'm looking forward to the buffet at East of Chicago.
Absolutely. Stay tuned to more Carolina People with the Honorable Robinson Oscar Everett coming up next. So many ways we could wrap a 3-part interview. It's tough not to utilize something special like this. Back in '99, Dad won an award from the Judge Advocates Association. Part of that speech is here. The speaker there highlighted all of his students are as devoted to him as he is to them. One of his former clerks stated that he always knows his students, at least by their face. Almost every place he goes, he sees a former student. He has an encyclopedic memory. A real exciting aspect, though, on visits to our military sites. He has a habit of writing a note to everyone he sees, from the commanding generals to the lowest ranking, to come visit his court. One day an E4 arrived, unannounced. Judge Everett was delighted and remembered she'd been one of his drivers on a previous occasion. He made her queen for the day, gave her a personal tour, and took her to lunch. No surprise, one clerk said. He is very busy, but he loves people. He knows no station in life. He is always very inquisitive. Whoever you are, you have something he wants to know about. Like his mother, like his father, like his grandfather. You have something he wants to know about. Very special man, Robinson Oscar Everett.